Greetings and welcome to the 14th episode of Morrowind Modding Interviews. With me today is Mike and Ike. Thank you for agreeing to do this interview.
Thanks for having me, tough guy.
And right away we're going to go into some basic questions, and the first of which is, when did you first start playing Morrowind and the Elder Scrolls in general?
In the Elder Scrolls in general, I started playing Morrowind. It was my first game. Back in 2002, I want to say. I think that's when it came out. I was in grade 7. I was with my friend Sean. He was telling me about. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was in like math class or something, and I remember him telling me about this game called the Elder Scrolls, and I had no idea it was called Morrowind. I just knew it was called the Elder Scrolls, and first thing that came to mind for me was like some Japanese game. I don't know, Elder Scrolls. Anyway, he told me you could do like anything. You could be a merchant. For some reason, I was really intrigued by that. And you could do anything. You could be anyone. Pretty much the same pitch Todd Howard gives everybody. And coming from games like GoldenEye 64 and Halo and Sega GT, like just games where you have an objective, the fact that you really told to do anything seemed really intriguing to me. So I think when it came out, I went to Blockbuster. Do you remember Blockbuster?
Oh yeah, I remember Blockbuster. That was a long time ago.
Rest in peace, Blockbuster. Yeah, I went to Blockbuster and picked it up over the weekend, and I was just getting my ass handed to me non-stop. I remember getting in trouble with the Halalu guards in Vivec, and oh no, it wasn't Halalu. It was an Ordinator, and getting killed by the Halalu guards in Balmora. And I was lost. I had no idea how to play it. I was 12 years old, but I loved it. It was amazing. It just felt like the worst vacation ever, in a sense. Yeah, and I've been playing it ever since.
Oh yeah, and sort of going into what you mentioned there, you know, going from games like Halo and GoldenEye, Morrowind was vastly different. I remember thinking, okay, where's the invisible walls? There has to be an invisible wall somewhere.
My biggest gripe was, why can't I hit this guy? I'm firing arrows at him, I'm swinging my sword, like, I would have killed him in GoldenEye by now, right? Or Halo or something. Like, the whole idea that your actions are based on chance and a dice roll was completely foreign to me. You click the trigger, the guy's supposed to die. Nope, doesn't happen.
Yeah, and sort of going into that thing you mentioned about the assuming it was a Japanese game, it's like Morrowind was sort of right at the end of the Japanese RPG era. It's like right before that, it's like you would just automatically assume that an RPG would be Japanese because they were sort of the dominant platform at the time, and then after Morrowind, it was sort of the advent of the Western RPG.
You know what? That actually might have a lot to do with it. Yeah, the friend that told me about it was heavy into the Final Fantasy series, and I think just coming from the way he was always trying to sell me on Final Fantasy games, which, you know, I'm not a really big fan of turn-based games. Aside from, I think I had Pokemon Gold and maybe a Dragon Warrior game, but I was never a fan of Japanese RPGs. So I think that's probably a lot. That probably had a lot to do with it too. The fact that it was always a Japanese dominated genre in a sense.
Sort of going into another question, what inspired your forum handle?
What inspired my forum handle? Probably when I was around the same age when I found Morrowind. I was also introduced to the amazing world of the internet and forums and accounts and stuff like that. And being the immature kid I was at the time, I like MikeandIke candy. My name is also Mike, so I thought, you know, why not put the two together? When I joined the forums again back in, I don't know when the account from the Bethesda forums say, it might be 2012, but when I joined in the Bethesda forums in 2006, I had the exact same name. So it's kind of a little bit of a homage to my old account in a sense.
I was sort of wondering if it had anything to do with the candy. Mike and Ike's. They recently broke up, actually, or they did break up, and then there was something about a movie, and I don't even know what's going on with Mike and Ike's now, but I think they're still on store shelves.
Yeah, it had everything to do with Mike and Ike's. I didn't know they broke up. I swear I saw them at the corner store here in Thailand recently.
Oh, I think it was an advertising ploy. It's like Mike and Ike break up, and then they had like Mike scratched off on some of the cartons, and then Ike scratched off on some of the cartons, and they were going on and on about the Mike and Ike movie. It was actually a fairly funny series of commercials.
Yeah, it sounds like a good ad campaign. Yeah.
Now, on to a more modding related question. What was your first mod, and how did you get the idea for it?
My first mod, I don't think I consider it my first mod, but I don't think I ever publicly released it. It was for Oblivion. I started a work in progress thread for it on the forums many years ago. It was called Harlexton Manor, our name. It was based off of the movie called The Haunting. With Liam Neeson. Looking back on it, it was such a terrible movie, but the set of the movie, which they shot at Harlexton Manor somewhere in the UK, I think it's some sort of dorm for some educational institution. It's designed beautifully. It's so detailed. It just looks like there's a lot of history and a lot of time and detail, and a love went into making the building. And then when you put almost like a horror twist on it, it becomes this entirely different thing. So the mod was basically a house mod, but it was this massive house mod with, just a ton of space. It was probably the same size as one of the cells of, I think, what's a comparable city in Oblivion, Skingrad or Breville. Like, it was huge. It was all a custom that I built in Blender using pre-existing Bethesda assets and textures too. They were just mismatched and put together, and it was looking really good. There was going to be a quest attached to it. I made some monsters, but then I hit a few obstacles in terms of animating them, and I had to give up. I was way too frustrated. It's at my wit's end.
That sounds like a really interesting project, and have you ever thought about going back to it?
I've thought about it many times, and I think because of my age and the discipline I lacked at the time, I totally could probably finish it now. And I think I've learned a lot more about 3D modeling since. I just don't know if there's a huge. I don't know if it would be worth it, because I feel like. And I can send you some pictures of it and whatnot, but I feel like it was more for, if I was to finish it now, it would be more for the sake of the community than for myself. I'm pretty happy with the mods I'm churning out now and what I'm able to do. But yeah, no, it definitely has come to my mind a few times.
Going into another forum-related question. After you found the Bethesda forums, did you immediately join, or did you lurk on the forums for a while? And this is a user-submitted question.
When I first joined, it was probably back in 2003. And before that, when I first joined, it was 2006, but I was lurking in 2003. I came from the console community. Like, we didn't really have a place where we could talk about games or any of that. So when I found out that there was this whole community of PC players playing Morrowind, and they had all these stories and mods and stuff, I was really interested, and I wanted to share that with someone, because prior to that, all I really played Morrowind was probably with my brother and that one dude I knew from school. No one else was really into RPGs. So yeah, no, I lurked for a bit, and I finally joined in 2006 under the name MikeandIke.
Oh yeah, I think it's a bit common for modders to just sort of lurk on forums for a bit before joining in. I don't know if we're sort of maybe antisocial, perhaps would be a term to use. I don't know if that's a common characteristic, but it does seem like a lot of us lurk.
Yeah, no, I definitely lurked a bit just because I wasn't sure what I was exactly dealing with at the time. Like I remember the first time I did join, it wasn't I can't remember if it was with MikeandIke or if I made a account. I just remember trying to pull a fast one on everyone and said, I remember saying that I found this amazing set of armor and I've never seen anything like it. And it looks like the same color of Daedric temples. And I said I found it in Red Mountain. And everyone instantly said, well, what mods are you using? I'm like, what are they even talking about? I'm on the Xbox. And then they're like, I can't remember. But yeah, I just didn't know the kind of people I was dealing with at the time. But once I got it for the PC and figured out, you can actually do things with this game, I think that's when I started getting more involved because I had things to share and I was playing these new additions that people were making. So yeah,
It was Morrowind came out at kind of an interesting time because at that particular era, it's like the internet wasn't the big thing it is now, and games sort of dominate the internet today. But when Morrowind came out, it was sort of all of that was still in its infancy, and so I think a lot of us didn't have a lot of practical experience with forums when we first joined up.
Yeah, a lot of especially 12-year-olds. 12-year-olds definitely don't have a lot of experience with new internet things.
Now, sort of going into your major mod series, you have the Epic City line of mods, and you've stated that your goal has always been to create the illusion of a bigger city through the establishment of architecture surrounding vanilla buildings. Can you go into more detail about what goes on behind the scenes in executing this strategy? And do you draw a lot of inspiration from real-world cities or perhaps urban planning?
There's a little bit of reality baked into the thought process for sure. I work in the film and broadcast industry, so a lot of what I do on a daily and weekly basis has a lot to do with set design and stuff like that. So framing up certain shots, how's it going to look from a 3/4 perspective? How's it going to look when you zoom in? Is there enough detail to zoom in? Are we going to see a lot of different things? Is it going to look good if we do it face on? Those are all kind of the questions I ask, on my day-to-day job. But when I'm, and the same things apply when I'm modding the Epic City mods. If you look at Balmora, for example, you're going to Cascade's house, dropping off some moon sugar or something, and you look at the whole kind of layered building effect that I did in the background. You see that the houses kind of archaically stacked on top of each other. There's really only one way you're gonna look at that. If you're walking up those stairs towards Caius Cascade's house, you're gonna look up. If you're coming from the Thieves Guild on the other side, you're still gonna be looking up. So a lot of it has to do with placing buildings in areas you're already going to be constrained to look at. It's a typical kind of linear game design approach. You build around the player and force them into a certain direction.
Oh yeah, and the thing I like about the design really is that it's a sort of vertical design. It has this sort of verticality to it that I really enjoy. It's like vertical city design is one of my favorite types of city designs. It's and I think you've achieved that really well with Epic Balmora and Epic Sadrith Mora.
Yeah, Epic Balmora definitely does it the best, and I think it's supposed to achieve that more so than the others just because of the geography in that area, whereas Epic Sadrith Mora is more flat, and I felt like there was so much space in in Sadrith Mora that just wasn't being used. Like if you walk around the left side of the main Talvani tower there, it's just nothing. There's just nothing there, and there's an exit over there that leads to the Daedric where what's it called, the hammer, Skull Crusher hammer is, and there's just nothing. Like it doesn't even look like it's guarded, and the Imperial presence is so weak there. It was just aching to be kind of redone and reimagined, and really made it feel like the Talvani foothold is supposed to be. So
Yes, definitely. Sadrith Mora has a ridiculous under space utilization for what is supposed to be a regional capital of a great house. It does seem like there ought to be more there. And sort of going into the issues of like a flat landscape and vertical city design, it is really hard to do vertical city design in Morrowind. There's not really a whole lot of vanilla assets that are really geared towards that.
Yeah, no, I think with my experience digging through what you have to work with, like a lot of it has to do with altering the geography a little bit and adding rocks that you can climb up, or just kind of figuring out strategically how you can place another building on another and still have it kind of scalable. Yeah. The other thing you're lucky with, you couldn't get away with it in Oblivion or Skyrim, is the fact that you can levitate. So that opens up that kind of extra level of, if it's too hard, you can levitate up there or something. But it's not really a practice that I use as a crutch. I usually try to either make it viewable from the ground, or have it fully accessible, whether it's you can walk up to it or whatnot. And in terms of levitation too, I'd never kind of create something you can look at from one angle, but if you levitate up, it looks like complete crap usually. And that's what I rely on the community a lot for too. If there are instances of those, I get feedback, and maybe there've been a couple, missing doors from certain angles that I missed, but that's one thing I also don't try to rely on as a crutch.
Levitation does make things a little difficult, especially in that respect. It's like you can't just have any construction errors that aren't visible from the player. And if you close off an area and you have a floating building, the player can just levitate up and they'll still run into the bug or other visible issues.
Yeah, definitely. And that was, in terms of vertical building, like that was a huge problem I was dealing with when I was testing out Epic Balmora. A lot of the buildings just looked really awkward when you levitated. For instance, when you levitated from Fort Moonmoth over the hill, and you're coming from the backside of Balmora in that sense, it just felt really bizarre. So I had to tweak a few things until it felt could naturally almost hop from roof to roof to roof, or walk down the stairs and get down to the ground floor, because it was just feeling like you're not meant to see this from here. Go the other way.
Oh yeah, and sort of going into another question about the Epic City mods, some have noticed that the Epic City series goes pretty well with random NPC generator mods, like MCA. Did you have any such mods in mind when making the design decisions you did?
Definitely not. I usually design or make mods for my own taste. I'm kind of like a vanilla purist in a sense. What I try to find mods and textures and stuff that stay as close to what Bethesda's done, or I find things that are lore friendly or use pre-existing assets in an interesting way. That being said, Morrowind Comes Alive was one of the mods I did use for quite a bit of time. I like the fact that it made cities feel more big, but at the same time, it didn't really make them feel bigger, just busy. So that's where, I addressed that problem. But in terms of having mods in mind when I made my stuff, I don't think so, no.
Well, they certainly do work pretty well together. It sort of gives the random NPCs added by these NPC generation mods, sort of like a home that the player can sort of immerse themselves into believing that's where they come from.
Yeah, no, it totally does that. And in a sense, it's kind of funny because they take it. I'm not sure who makes Morrowind comes alive, but I feel like they took the same kind of liberties I did in terms of almost keeping the responsibility of creating actual unique characters to the world itself. Like they're all, if I remember correctly, they're all just generic classes like Archer, Bandit. They don't actually have real names. I kind of took that same approach by not making interiors. I didn't want. I thought it was just too much power for me to almost create all these places, all these rooms with unique NPCs with their stories, and it just felt like some things are better left to the originals.
Oh yeah, I can sort of understand that, even though I'm an interior designer for mods, and so I kind of like building interiors, but the number of interiors has been a major issue for a lot of modding projects, like Tamara built and Skyrim in the Nords. It's like one of the major barriers they run into is that the cities they create require so many unique interiors, and it's just hard to design all of those.
Yeah, and like even interiors, that's totally fine. Like I have no problem. I would have no problem making all of those interiors for those buildings. Like obviously you would have to do a lot of duplication. It's just cluttering every single one in a unique way, so they all feel different. I think that would be the most tedious part. The biggest gripe for me was the actual creation of a new person in that world. That I think, because I couldn't create a bunch of homes that were all empty and say, here, you can move into any one you want. I'd have to create people, and I just didn't feel like I was worthy of creating people for the world.
It can be a really big challenge, sort of, coming up with interesting NPCs that have stories, and, the interiors they live in, kind of have to reflect them a little bit, like, sort of environmental storytelling in a sense. It's, the interior should reflect the person that lives there.
Definitely, and I kind of started doing that with, as much as I could, with Epic Ald Ruhn, in a sense. Like, there's certain areas where houses will all face towards the center, like they'll make a circle in a sense, and if you go in the middle, there's a hollowed out tree stump, and there's a skooma pipe in it, and some extra goodies in a bag. Nothing crazy, maybe like 50 gold or something. But I tried to kind of pepper in those stories, like what are the kind of people that live in this area? Maybe this guy has an ashy yard, and I have no idea. But I don't know. I definitely like telling stories using clutter. Telling too much of a story, for me, makes it feel like it's unauthentic anymore.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a kind of a tightrope that you sort of have to balance yourself on with interior and, I guess, to a certain extent, exterior design as well.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope.
Now, we have another user-submitted question, and that is, have you thought about expanding ruins and other non-city areas rumored to have been much larger than they actually appear in game, such as Ald Ruhr, which was rumored to have been the primary settlement for House Sotha, the ancestral house of Sotha Sil, but which is noticeably small for its historical importance?
That's actually never crossed my mind. I've always been focused on cities because they're alive and there's people in them. The thing with ruins is they're exactly that. They're remnants of another time. What you see is what you get. Just like in real life, you're not gonna find some old Roman ruins in perfect shape. The full size they were. When I think of Dwemer ruins, when I think of Daedric ruins, I think of what was left of another civilization. So I don't think I would make them any bigger, because I think I've always felt in my head that that's all there was to them at that point in time.
Sort of going into that, you also had another series that you were working on for, I believe, expanding the Ashlander camps. Can you go into a bit about that?
Yeah, no, that was supposed to be my next. That definitely should have been finished by now. But I released another mod, if you will, in a sense that it was just a lot easier to do. I think I bit off a little bit more than I could chew with the Epic. I was going to call it Epic Ashlanders, and it was essentially the same principles of the Epic cities, with a few little extras, but essentially going back to what we were saying too about telling stories with clutter. Each great house has its own kind of look and feel, and with you know with the way the game is right now, aside from the actual geography, there's nothing really to tell them apart that much. So I kind of wanted to do with Epic Ashlanders. So I started with the Urshlaku or Gishlaku or whatever it's called camp, and I finished that one, posted some pictures. People got really excited, maybe a little bit too excited. I don't even think there were doors on the yurts. So, and that gave me some, motivation to say, hey, people actually like this. And then I started thinking about what the hell am I going to do when I get to Ald Ruhn and I have to script in basically an entire camp when you do the main quest, spoiler alert, and the whole Amahusa, I think it's Amahusa or something like that. They all move up there afterwards. It was part of the Nervarine quest. And I stopped and I kind of thought about it and I jumped to the next camp. And I guess I've been working on it and I've kind of been avoiding this big task of scripting a construction, using the construction set because, this whole time I've either been making textures or cluttering the world with buildings, but I've never really done some script, like heavy scripting. The most scripting I think I've done is, the script that keeps you out of the buildings. So it's definitely something I'm going to have to face soon. But, right now I'm doing some traveling around the world. So I'm stalling a little bit.
Oh yeah, Morrowind scripting is pretty easy for the most part, but the main issue there with, sort of moving the camp is that, Bethesda uses, enable disable scripts and globals for the strongholds, and you could do something similar, but the problem is that you would have to make, a unique asset for each object that you place in the camp, and that could potentially be 100, 200 items. It's very tedious.
Yeah, no, I'm fully aware of that. I think what I might have to do is, I might have to expand, and it kind of ties back to the question of expanding runes. I just might have to make Ald Ruhn even more, even bigger than it actually is, so it actually can feel like a home in a sense.
Now, I'm sort of curious. Have you thought about maybe releasing the Epic Ashlander camps, piecemeal? Focusing on one camp at a time, and then maybe after each mod is released, sort of doing a compilation and throwing it all into one big package.
Yeah, it's totally possible. At this point, I feel like I'm almost there. But yeah, you're right. I could do that. I just feel like it's a lot of individual mods that aren't really if you think of an Ashlander camp, it's not the same size as Balmora or Sadrith Mora or Ald Ruhn. They're kind of smaller, bite-sized areas. So I honestly feel like I might as well just do them all and send it all out at once.
Oh yeah, definitely. It makes sense, but there are a lot of sort of large mod projects that have sort of taken this approach, More Detailed Places, I think it was. That was released city by city in a sort of piecemeal fashion. I mean, it doesn't do a huge amount to each city, but it's sort of done that way. And even Morrowind Rebirth kind of had its start out with that sort of piecemeal system before it became this massive mod.
Yeah, no, totally. It could definitely work. My only concern is, and this is more of a kind of a selfish concern too, is when you split it up, you have to start over again in terms of building the hype getting it voted to the right places so more people can download it. Like for me, it's always about, I'm building these things for myself, but at this time, I'd love to share them with everyone else, and I want to make sure it sees as many eyes as possible. So making sure it's file of the month, or one of the most downloaded mods of the month, or something like that. It's easier to do when it's just one piece rather than having to do it 5 times in a row.
Oh yeah, perfectly understandable. And going into some more, I guess, general modding questions, do you do any planning before you start a mod, and if yes, how?
Because I haven't been at a computer for maybe like 4 months now, I've definitely been sketching and drawing a lot of planning for future stuff that I may or may not touch when I get back from traveling. But for most of the mods I've made, I haven't done I haven't done any planning. I do a lot of hard scheduling, like in terms of deadlines. I plan out, I'm gonna finish this by Friday, so I can test it on Saturday, so I can make the media assets for the Nexus, and push everything on a Sunday, and then address everyone's bugs and stuff on the following day. But usually I work in like short sprints and finish them fairly quickly. Most of the mods I've made, believe it or not, maybe it's easy to believe for some, I've made them over over weekends, probably. Just like they're 10 to 12 hours a day sitting at the computer, just cluttering or texturing or designing something. I don't know. But for me, it's always been play the game, mod later. I definitely feel like I'll always be a Morrowind player before a modder. And whenever I change from, playing the game to modding, it's usually because I find a problem with the game, something that I'm not happy with. And immediately I'll go to the Nexus or Great House Flickery or something and look for something that addresses it. And most of the time I find something, whether it's a texture pack or something. But sometimes, and in the case of Epic mods, user interface mods, and a few texture mods, I couldn't find anything that was good for me. So I know how to do these things. I did them myself, and yeah, that's kind of how I plan things. It's just very spontaneous. Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned, that you're a Morrowind player first and a Morrowind modder second. I think with a lot of old-time Morrowind modders, it's probably the other way around now. A lot of people spend more time modding today than they really do playing.
I think, and that was one of the things I think that had me stop playing Skyrim. I think I got way too fixated on, I don't know, dolling it up in a sense, and texturing this and downloading that, and I just got so heavy into modding that I don't know, I felt like I wasn't sure what I was doing anymore. Like I was just making things, but I wasn't really playing anything, and it just felt really confusing for me. And that's the other thing too. Like maybe it's a PC thing. Like PC gamers are more tinkerers than they are, I'd say personally, than they are gamers. Maybe it was growing up on consoles. I have this expectation that playing games, you should always be playing games rather than making them. I have no idea. This is just midnight ramblings right now.
Oh yeah, I definitely think that might be true. I mean, with a console, you have a game straight out of the box, you put it in the disc tray, and you play it, and when you're done, you stop playing it, and you play something else, and, well, with the PC, it's like, if you finish playing, you just download something, or start working on something yourself, and add that to the game, and then keep playing until you find something else to add, or something else to modify, and the cycle repeats itself.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't make games on consoles. They play games on consoles. So the whole kind of utility of a PC is definitely plays into it. Developers are so generous in giving us the tools to what they've created, and it opens up a whole new kind of way to look at a game. It's not even a game anymore. It's this massive sandbox that you can create things from your imagination and share them with other people. It's pretty amazing.
Oh yeah, it's definitely one of the great things about PC gaming. Now, this wasn't really a question I was going to ask you before. I just sort of spontaneously thought of it. You were mentioning before with the planning question that, you focus on creating media assets for the Nexus, and that you want to get your mod on top of the file of the month for each month when you release it. And, well, something I've noticed is that a lot of the sort of old guard of Morrowind modders, they really, really don't like the Nexus. Some of them even hate the Nexus, because it has this sort of commercial vibe to it, and these are modders that come from the old Morrowind Summit, Planet Elder Scrolls days. And how do you feel about the sort of presentation of the Nexus and the way mods are shown on it?
First off, I like how you call them the old god modders. It's amazing. I don't know. And then to that sense, like, I feel like I may have not been a modder, but I've been playing the Elder Scrolls just as long as everybody else, and it's so important to keep adapting and keep moving forward. The truth is, a lot of people come from Skyrim now. Like, you just have to accept that they're coming from this mentality where the Skyrim Nexus is this huge hub where everyone downloads all their content, and it's a huge, culture, community. It's generated memes, everything. The Skyrim Nexus is massive. So bringing the same, mimicking whatever they do on the Skyrim Nexus on the Morrowind Nexus is important, but at the same time, moving those mods from, Great House Fliggerty and what's that other one that always gave me a virus warning. Eric something. What's it called? Do you know?
I believe it's Eric Melbourne. I believe the site's actually defunct now.
Yeah, that's it. Probably because it always gave me a virus warning. But anyway, it's those, as popular as they are with the old community, it's all about being accessible. The more accessible you are, the more people are going to share it, the more of a payoff I personally would feel, for, putting the time and effort and just sharing, hey, this is what I was thinking of. Does this resonate with other people? Do people agree with this? Is this terrible? Like, is this lazy? I want to, and that's what drew me to the forums for the first time too. Like, I want to share how I feel about this game with other people. Where's the community to do that? When Skyrim came out, when it was a huge success, I was so happy that people finally, everyone was taking an arrow to the knee, but like, people finally knew what the Elder Scrolls was. It wasn't this thing that I could only talk to my brother about or my friend in grade 7. Like, I could start talking to people about, Skyrim and Nords and everything. I don't know. I feel like it's such a part of my life that I want to share with people. I need to give it the best chance it's got. And for me, it's always been about the Nexus is the most public place, whereas, the forums, Great House Fliggerty, they've always been a bit more tight-knit, kind of catered towards, modders that have been doing this for a while. Even what you're doing, I feel like, is a huge step in the right direction. YouTube's a huge market. There's a name of Skyrim to Morrowind mod that I don't know if we can name or not, but they do an amazing job taking the word of Morrowind around. Like, I feel like they help so much. And the DLC for Dragonborn definitely helped, opened up people's kind of eyes to what Bethesda was capable of making with the Red Ruhn, House Red Ruhn architecture on Raven Rock, and yeah, I don't know. For me, it's always been about making it accessible, and I feel like it definitely Nexus is the best way to go.
Sort of going into that in terms of accessibility, it's like, well, sites like Great House Fligerty and Morrowind Modding History, they don't have the sort of feedback or promotional features that the Nexus has, and that's kind of made it harder to sort of just scroll through and find really good mods on either of those websites. I mean, they have a ton of awesome features on Great House Fligerty and Morrowind Modding History. You can actually make your own weapon mods from the web browser on Morrowind Modding History, and Great House Fligerty actually has a Facebook thing for your Morrowind characters, so you can like plug into your save game, upload screenshots and gameplay data, and get achievements and all this other cool stuff. But the lack of promotional activity, like lots of screenshots and videos and promotional art, as kind of keeps it tight-knit.
Yeah, definitely. The social infrastructure is definitely one of those things that's lacking. And like you mentioned, the in theory, like the I think it's called the Census and Excise Office or whatever by the Great House Fligerty. It's really, really cool. It's a really cool thing that definitely deserves to be bigger than what it is right now. But the problem with Morrowind is, again, like it's a single player game. People are used to seeing certain things on the Nexus, the Skyrim Nexus. They're not going to deviate that far from it. So almost, I don't know if it needs a page or something needs to be created in order to kind of funnel people over, for sure.
I think the thing that probably really gets me the most is that people look at Morrowind Nexus first. They see around 3,300 files, and they think that's the entirety of the mods for Morrowind. When there's Morrowind Modding History, it's like it's a click away. It has 16,000 mods, which is a huge number, and people don't even know it exists.
Yeah, and I think that's the sad thing too. Like we had Planet Elder Scrolls for a while, and that was a good chunk of mods as well. And I feel like a lot of new Morrowind players were probably tapping into Planet Elder Scrolls just because they had a fairly decent, I think, Skyrim list, and Oblivion. But yeah, Morrowind Modding History hasn't really been tapped into, and there are tons of amazing mods that were made many years ago that you're only going to find now through hyperlinks and stuff. It's kind of sad.
Oh yeah, like classics like The Underground, Lothvor's Legacy. Really, a lot of the best quest mods that you can even find from Morrowind are only really available from Morrowind Modding History.
Yeah, and maybe those modders will, I think someone did this recently. I think it was Dark Knight. I think he moved all of his mods over to the Nexus, all his 1 million texture replacers, his 1040 texture replacers. I think he moved them all. But I think more people are going to have to do that in order to give their mods, that legacy they wanted to.
Oh yeah, there's sort of been a resurgence of old modders that were sort of inactive for the past few years that have been coming back, starting to post their mods on the Nexus. Dark Knight was one. Fadius was another one. And there's been a few others also that have been coming back in recent years.
Yeah, they probably come back. They're just like, what happened? Everyone's gone. And then they just have to pick up all their stuff, move it to this new place, and start, pushing it there. See what happens when they release the next game. Who knows where we're going to have to move the stuff. Maybe it'll all be on the Steam Workshop.
Now, that is a truly scary thought, but sort of going into that, it's like, if you were around in 2003, the Morrowind Nexus, which wasn't called the Nexus at the time, it was a different name, but it used to be a really small backwater Morrowind fan site, and it's grown into this huge network, and it's still hard for, I think, a lot of Morrowind modders to sort of conceive the concept that Planet Elder Scrolls is gone, and somehow this, what was a small backwater site, is now sort of the center of the modding community for just about any game on the interwebs.
Yeah, no, totally. I think it might also have a lot to do with Skyrim being the primary reason, the people have been drawn to the Nexus. And you raise a pretty good point. Like, it's been around for a while. I remember using it. I don't think I ever downloaded many mods for Morrowind back in the day, but I used it a lot for Oblivion when Oblivion first came out in 2004 or something, 2005. I used it a lot. Like, it has those. It came from grassroots. Like, I don't know. I feel like it definitely shouldn't have as much resistance as people have towards it.
One of the issues that I think people have mentioned is that they don't like the commercial vibe that the Nexus presents. I don't know if that means like advertisements or paid premium subscriptions or the things like that, but something about that just sort of turns people off.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, when you have such a large infrastructure hosting so many different mods, you need to, and amongst different games, you got to pay the bills somehow, I guess. And you have people working there too. I think they're looking for a community manager now too. I don't think he's working for free. But yeah, you have to pay the bill somehow. And in regards to the whole advertising they've got on there, I think it's gotten better over the years. I remember it being really obtrusive back in the day, but now, like, they run banner ads on the side, but the audio isn't on. And I don't know. I feel like people naturally just ignore banner ads and stuff anyway. The whole subscription thing, maybe you get access to a faster server or something like that. I've never been, appealed to me, and I've never used it, and I don't really have a problem with the download speeds on there. So yeah, I don't know. It feels like it serves its purpose, and it's got the community function, and it's got the media function. It does what it needs to. Yeah, and I feel like that's why it's working.
Oh yeah, and well, speaking of advertisements, I think that's what finally pushed me to get premium, was the fact that there were video ads on the Nexus, which, well, for someone like me who's on a satellite internet connection, it's like video ads eat up a lot of bandwidth. And in my case, it's like Morrowind mods, they're not that big, but a video ad kind of is, so that's really the reason why I ended up getting premium. Sort of going back to more general modding questions, have you been influenced by any non-Elder Scrolls games when you mod?
I don't think I've been heavily influenced, but I've definitely taken some philosophies and thoughts. Like, for instance, the whole vertical approach to buildings in Balmora, in Epic Balmora. I kind of took that out of a play from the design of the buildings in an old Xbox game called Jet Set Radio Future. It was a futuristic view of Tokyo, and it featured these old, these archaic old cube condo-like buildings that were just stacked and stacked, and it looked like a mess to look at, but it was just so beautiful. So I wanted to create something similar to that in Balmora. I wanted to create something that looked kind of really hustle and bustle, something that kind of felt like when they're just kind of building this stuff as they go, as the city expands, as House Lalu gets richer, that kind of thing. So that's definitely what I did there. I think with Ald Ruhn, another Bethesda game, Fallout 3, inspired the whole kind of dark ambient feel of Scar, which I did in Epic Ald Ruhn. It was Little Lamplight. I don't know if you've played Fallout 3, but Little Lamplight is it's like a child-run cave. And I remember when I first played Fallout 3, I went inside and I'm like, wow, this kind of looks like Ald Ruhn if someone, turned out all the torches. So when I came back to Morrowind and, got in the construction set and I was doing Epic Ald Ruhn, I said, why not? Why not try, taking that approach to Ald Ruhn? The space is way too big for it to be lit so well anyway, for the amount of torches that are actually in there. The other ones, I don't know, probably not too many other games. I can't think of anything else. Everything else has just been like looking at Bethesda games from the future, whether it's Skyrim or Oblivion or Fallout for that matter. Yeah.
Speaking with Underscore in Epic Ald Ruhn, I have to say that was a really fantastic design. I think a lot of people really loved that aspect of Underscore with all the lights sort of dangling here and there. It was quite nice.
Yeah, it's definitely, after playing for so many years, it's definitely a change that I welcomed. It doesn't feel, I'll admit, it doesn't feel 100% like House Redoran, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like House Telvanni, or it doesn't feel like House Hlaalu. It just feels like this is what Scar is supposed to look like. It's kind of disconnected from Redoran in that sense, but at the same time, I don't know, it felt like the right thing to
do. Sort of on a similar note, I was sort of interested, because this is a user-submitted question. Are there any modders who have inspired or influenced you in some way in the way that you've designed your mods? And if so, what was it about their work that moved you to mod in the first place?
Just because, I'm kind of like I said, I'm like a vanilla kind of purist in a sense. So I'm not 100% familiar with everyone's names. Like I know a lot of work and what's been done, but I can't name a lot of people. But the first person that does come to mind in terms of Morrowind is I think you interviewed him, Lugian.
Oh yes, I think it's Logan, or I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce his name. But he has the bump map series of texture places, which are pretty fantastic looking, to be honest.
Yeah, he specializes in textures, and I believe it or not, I do a lot of texture work too, and I always, whenever I create something, it's in terms of textures. I always ask myself, does this jive well with what we'll call him Logan, what Logan's made? And if it doesn't, I'm not even going to play with it. I'm just gonna throw it in the recycling bin and start again. I don't bump map my textures, but at the same time, I create an illusion of bump mapping, so it still chives pretty well. And whatever he's made, I never will make, just because I'm so content with what he makes. There's been a few eyebrow raisers in terms of textures he's made, but yeah, no, he's definitely my my go-to and the bar in terms of what's been set for textures for Morrowind.
Now, I'm sort of curious. I'm by no means a texture artist, but I was sort of curious about what programs you use to make textures with. I know in past programs we've had a lot of people that have used Adobe Photoshop and other similar programs. Is there something that you in particular like to use?
No, I use Photoshop like everyone else. I think a lot of it has to do with, for me, it's always about loading up the original game, looking at the original textures, and then figuring out what material is this actually made out of. Is this rust? Is this stone? Is this metal? What kind of stone is it? How deep? How rough is it? How coarse is it? How much texture? And then it's all about literally going outside and taking a picture, or buying images of textures, or just Google image searching textures. It's finding the most suitable texture to mimic what's already been made, and then of course what matches Logan's style of textures. But I just use Photoshop and a lot of image sourcing.
And another modding-related question. What modding projects are you working on right now? I mean, I know you said you mentioned you were sort of taking a break from Epic Ashlander camps. And I also noticed that there's a screenshot of what could only appear to be Epic Mournhold or something similar to that on like your Skyrim UI download page. Are there any other projects that you're working on?
Epic Mournhold, actually, if I think about it now, Epic Mournhold came before Epic Balmora, Epic Sadrith Mora, and Epic Ald Ruhr. And it's done. I've just never released it. And with Mournhold, it's completely linear, right? So you have that advantage. You can't levitate in Mournhold. You're blocked off by these massive walls. People can only see from the ground. So now that I think about it, that's probably what spawned the same decisions I made with the rest of the Epic mods. But Epic Mournhold's done. I just haven't tested it, and now that you reminded me of that one image, I could probably just test it, run through the different areas, and create a little splash page on the Nexus and kick it out over a weekend. And then I should probably finish Epic Ashlanders. I was telling a couple of other modders that reached out to me because they wanted to make compatibility patches or something for the Epic mods, because they've asked the same questions on, what are you up to next? And a lot of the sketching I've been doing here is for an Epic Vivec mod. And I've been kind of not so much influenced by the culture in the places I've been visiting, but more or less experienced by, or I've been kind of influenced by the experiences I've had and how it really kind of feels to be a foreigner in a foreign place, kind of what the whole thing about Morrowind is. And I just want to kind of, I don't know, I feel like I can accentuate that more when you first step into the foreign quarter and make it feel really like a foreign quarter. Sadrith Mora kind of did it with the whole hospitality papers, but you could literally, you didn't need them. It was some big mess that they never finished or something. But I feel like there's a lot you can do with, and that's the other problem too. Like Vivec's been touched as many times as Balmora, but yeah, there's a lot you can do to bring out the great houses, to bring out the St. Olms and St. Dylan Canton, and I don't know. I feel like Vivec's palace in general, like inside, is so underwhelming. Like you just go in and you just see this dude and he's levitating on a stupid pedestal, and that's it. Like I don't know. Puzzle Canal too. Like I expected it to be some sort of like the Marvani ancestral tomb down south where you find the Daedric helmet of God or whatever. Those are the kind of expectations I had for this place, and I don't know. I'll have to do some digging to see if mods exist already to that kind of address those issues. But for the most part, that's what's been on my mind a lot recently.
I know you've been traveling for a while now, and so I don't know if you've noticed this mod or not, but in like the last few months, I think it was, there was this sort of big Vivec mod that was released called Dramatic Vivec. That sort of, it adds a lot to the city of Vivec in terms of detailing, sort of giving it that kind of epic feel, and I was just sort of curious if you've checked that out. And as far as interiors go, we recently featured Nimen's Vivec Interiorator, I believe it's called, which changes a lot of things in the plazas and stuff like that.
In regards to that first one, Dramatic Vivec, actually one of the people that messaged me was the guy that made that. He was wondering if he could make a compatibility patch or something for the textures I made, replace all the Vivec and Velothi architecture textures to something that's very vanilla, but really kind of detailed and modern in terms of resolution and whatnot. And I saw it, and it really kind of made me think about, is this will I don't know, will this kind of curb that hunger I have to make Vivec bigger? And I really can't give you an answer until I actually install it and play it. The other one too is Morrowind Rebirth, right? It does a lot to Vivec from what I've seen. It makes it closer to the concept art.
Morrowind Rebirth, I don't think it changes a lot with the major cantons, but it does add like a new district that is very much inspired by the concept art. As far as other changes, I don't think it makes a whole lot of changes to the like the palace and the central portions of Vivec.
Okay, sweet. So that crosses that one off the list. And then I know there's like a myriad of different, open plaza mods that open up the tops of all the cantons, and so you pretty much have a seamless top, like that one random one in Malagmar, I think it's called. But I don't think that's something I'm looking at doing. It's more of just kind of accentuating the personalities of every single one from the exterior and probably from the interior to a degree as well. I'll look into that other one you mentioned as well. I haven't heard of it or seen it.
Yeah, Nimen's Vivec Interior. We actually just featured it like yesterday in episode 31 as the like Blast from the Past model. It's pretty old. It gives a lot of unique characteristics to the wasteworks and the plazas of each canton. It doesn't really touch any of the other interiors too much, but mainly just the plazas and wasteworks. It actually uses a sort of vertical design as well in regards to the plaza.
Yeah, no, I think in the vertical design, it's probably an amazing thing to take advantage of in the plaza. It's definitely something I would do. You have all that space up there, even that whole dome. Like, it's nice to look at, but at the end of the day, like, you could do so much more with it. And I was even thinking, like, one of the sketches I've done is imagine a massive Telvanni spore tower just crashing right out of the top of the plaza. And then you'd be able to see that from the inside and outside. And, maybe, I don't know how I'd be able to do it. Maybe it's you turn the interior to an exterior, but I don't know, modify the mesh of the plaza, get some light in there. So you have using graphics extender, you get some like natural god rays or whatever. It'd feel really it'd be really beautiful in a really messy way, I'd say.
Oh yeah, it kind of feels like the developers sort of missed an opportunity there. It's like, I know the temple would absolutely hate it, but the Telvanni are known for just, doing whatever they want. And like with Tel Voss, it's like that Imperial fort was still under construction, and the Telvanni just, sprouted this giant mushroom tower out of it. It definitely seems like you could do something similar with the Vivec Canton.
That's actually, that was one of the notes I made because I have this whole list of how I could, do things differently with each great house and everything. And one of the Telvanni things I had was replace all ordinators with Telvanni guards, almost like they don't really care about where they are or who's governing what. They just want to have control over their things and, have their stuff well guarded, and this is what they do. You guys in the temple can go bug everyone else. But yeah, I just want to kind of almost the same kind of thing I want to do with Epic Ashlanders is almost I want to do with Epic Vivec. But we'll see what happens. I got a lot of research to do to figure out if it's worth it.
Now, since you mentioned it earlier, you've been traveling in Southeast Asia for a few months now, and I was curious if you've been getting a lot of new modding ideas from that experience of traveling through a lot of foreign countries.
Yeah, kind of. Like I mentioned, it more of the feeling of traveling through different countries and how you feel. Like it feels very similar to. It's so funny. It feels very similar to playing Morrowind for the first time, or getting lost in Vivec. Like you get those same things, or people treating you differently because you're not from that place, or people trying to take advantage of you like that. Those are all the common notions that you go through when you're in a new place, and it all happens in Morrowind, which is amazing. So I definitely feel the parallels, and I definitely feel like there's room to improve those parallels. But for me, it's always been about creating textures and designing buildings. It's never been about creating characters or writing content or anything like that. So I wouldn't really create any shady characters that try to rip you off on a Silt Strider ride or something like that. But I think in terms of creating textures and making or designing something, I think there might be room to grow with the whole temple. I look at the temples, like the Buddhist temples here, and even the Hindu temples. I've been to India as well, and you just look at the way everything's crafted and all the detail, and you can tell like something made. If there was a modern religion today, they would not be able to create something with such passion and such, I don't know, it's something so tedious as creating 500 heads and putting them on a wall, all with their own features and their tongues sticking out, each one with a full set of teeth. Like, you don't just do those things because you have to. You're doing them because you have faith and you believe. And I feel like you can totally apply that same amount of thinking and that amount of love to the temple in Morrowind. You can totally make it feel like these people that live in Vardenfell, they worship the ground that the tribunal walks on. Like, you can play that out so much more than those obelisk shrines and the frescoes on the wall. Like, there's so much more that can be done in that sense.
Oh yes, definitely. In terms of cultural art, the Tribunal Temple in Morrowind only has like 2 frescoes and maybe 6 or 7 different kinds of obelisk shrines. It's not really a whole lot of variety in terms of art.
Yeah, and I think the art from those is concept art. Maybe I think I saw them in the concept art book, but yeah, I just feel like you could use a lot more detail to play up the just how really worshipped the tribunal is. Ghostgate kind of started doing that with the statues of the heads or whatever on the pillars, but I don't really see that much sculpting in detail. Maybe for good reason, but I feel like it could definitely benefit from it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And well, going on to a sort of another question that's been submitted by users. It's how much time would you say you spend per week or possibly month modding? And I realize that this doesn't really apply to you right now because you've been sort of out of the country for the past few months and probably haven't been modding. But other than that, what would you say is the normal amount of time you spend per month modding when you're at home?
Yeah, when I'm back, it's more like I've mentioned before. I kind of create mods in short, so really like or long bursts. Maybe over a weekend I'll spend at least 17 hours or so just making the mod and then testing it for a little bit, maybe like a few hours, and then it's releasing it. And maybe I'll spend like 20 minutes putting together the Nexus page, the images, the screenshots, and everything, and then testing it is a big part. Then, as bad as it sounds, the only thing I want to do is get back to playing. So faster I can, develop, test, promote, and then address the issues that people are having, the better, and then I can get back to playing and get back to making the next mod.
Again, I have to point out the parallel, because usually it's people want to get back to modding instead of back to playing. It's just, it's very opposite from the typical modder that you run into.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I don't know. It's bizarre, but you know, I I don't know. I don't even know what to say. I'm always playing Morrowind, and clearly, judging by an earlier conversation we have, I still haven't really played enough of Morrowind if I haven't found everything. So I got to keep getting back to it, and yeah, modding whenever I see something wrong. That's the way I roll.
Oh yeah, you got to remember to check those tree stumps. Very important when playing Morrowind.
See, that could be a mod in itself. Like, how can we bring out the tree stumps more to know that you can interact with them? Like, it's there you go. That could be my epic tree stumps.
I've heard worse ideas. I mean, just scatter tree stumps around the world, fill them with goodies, and let the player discover them.
Vertical building tree stumps. It's gold. I'm gonna do it.
That's your next file of the month on the Nexus right there. Vertical tree stumps.
I'm gonna release it in 5 different pieces, one for each region, and it's gonna add. Yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Every single one, you're gonna see all 5 of them up at the top, and the slider's just gonna change, and it's gonna be the exact same screenshot for every single file.
Not even a different screenshot for the different regions? I mean, come on, it's not exactly really applicable to the mod if the screenshot's not of the same region.
If there's time.
Sort of moving on, do you like to listen to any music while you mod? And if so, what do you listen to?
I don't really listen to... I don't think I listen to music when I mod. I can't even remember, to be honest with you. But when I work, I don't listen to music. And when I mod, I'm just going to say that when I mod, I don't listen to music. But I do specifically remember listening to this band that someone sent me called Youth Lagoon, some UK band, some indie band. When I made Epic Ald Ruhn, it was a really different sound to me, and I feel like I don't know. I feel like it kind of influenced me a little bit to make some different decisions with Epic Ald Ruhn in terms of, I don't know, just taking a bit more liberty than I usually did in comparison to Epic Sadrith Mora and Epic Balmora, which kind of just changed the environment surrounding the city, whereas Epic Ald Ruhn kind of goes inside. There's the whole temple raises off the ground. Yeah, so yeah, it was called the band was called Youth Lagoon. It was kind of like this indie rock, electric, lots of reverb. Yeah, Youth Lagoon. Weird.
I can't say that I've heard of it, but then again, I really haven't heard of very many bands at all. I'm a classical music sort of guy, so I know Bach, I know Beethoven, I know Mozart, I don't really know Coldplay. I think they're a band from Finland, or possibly the Netherlands, I have no idea.
I don't think anybody knows Coldplay anymore. A majority of Skyrim players don't know the good side of Coldplay at this point in time. I play the piano, so I'm very familiar with Bach. I listen to a lot of Chopin, actually.
Oh yeah, Chopin. I love Chopin. His music is just really great. I think it's what is it, Nocturne or something like that. It's a piece that I really like to listen to, particularly when I'm modding.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, and everyone says, classical music very good to work to. Keeps you productive. It's good for studying or whatever you might be doing. But I don't know. I feel like it, especially Chopin, like it stirs up a lot of emotions in me, and I kind of like to approach things with an idea and with that's already been in my mind, or I don't want to be kind of influenced in a sense that will kind of set the mod off on a different direction. I know what I want to make in my head, and I don't want to deviate from that, I guess.
I have to admit that's not really something I've considered before, is the the emotional influence from music on creating mods. It's just never occurred to me that music could influence like the way you design a mod.
Yeah, like I feel like definitely like you'll be or even like not even designing but playing. Like sometimes you can just pair music with a certain scene or certain moment. Um, Visually and audibly they go together really well. I always say like when I'm doing working within the industry that I work in, music is the skeleton. Visuals and videos, the skin, like they go hand in hand together. They can totally influence one another. If you're making a mod, that you can totally fall into that. It's not a trap, but it's kind of a natural thing that can happen.
Yeah, sort of going into that, it's like the hardest thing for me when making a mod trailer for Morrowind Modding Trailers is like choosing a music track that really goes with the visual, and that takes a lot of time to do, to sort of just decide on something that would match the video footage.
Yeah, I think, and that's the tricky part for me. The best way I do it personally is I don't try to match the music with the video. I match the music with the idea and let the video almost play along with the music in a sense. So it's almost like the music follows the edit of the video rather than what the video is going to be about. If that makes sense.
Oh yes, it does. It's just it's always a little hard to like get the video footage to like match the music. In that case, it's like pre-selecting the music, and then you have to somehow get the video edits to match up with the music, and it takes like a lot of raw video footage to get it perfectly right.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like it's always better to shoot more and then cut down to what you actually need, for sure.
Which is unfortunate for my hard drive, but better in the long run.
Definitely unfortunate for your hard drive. But yeah, I guess you can just delete it afterwards. I did it in an Epic Tree Stump, do what you have to do.
Oh yeah, we're going to be seeing a few trailers of Epic Tree Stumps coming up, aren't we?
I'm actually releasing some vines, if you know what those are.
Vines. Those are the things that swing from trees, right? It's that's part of the new tree internet culture, I think. I don't really know. I'm one of those people that are insulated in the Morrowind community. I don't really go out into the wider social network much. I mean, I don't know what a Facebook is. I don't maintain a Facebook account, really.
Oh my god. Really? And you're managing a YouTube channel? Oh my god. How do you know what YouTube is?
Well, obviously my YouTube channel has a Facebook page. I just don't personally have a Facebook page that I maintain. It's completely different.
Gotcha. Okay. Scared me there for a sec.
Alright, so moving on from pointless social networking nonsense that isn't related to Morrowind. If you could make a single change to the capabilities of the construction set, what would it be?
I would have to say if I could make a single change the construction set, it would have to be, and I don't even know if it's possible, but it would just be in a perfect world kind of scenario. It would be like grouping objects, similar to the way you can group stuff in Photoshop or 3ds Max and things like that. It would be so much easier to kind of move and rotate things and build things, break them down. Maybe you only want to grab all the rows of cups, have kind of nested groups of objects in the viewport. Like I think that would be a pretty useful tool from a building perspective.
Oh yeah, the sort of lack of features with regards to in-house texturing and in-house modeling is sort of the big limitation with the construction set. I mean, it has all these capabilities to do everything else, except then you have to port textures and models into the game, and that's always a bit of a hassle.
Yeah, it seems like whoever is developing the construction set on their end is just like really shying away from facing this massive task of creating this tool where you can create things within the construction set. But again, like, I don't know, most people, most character designers or environment designers or people that work with 3ds Max are most comfortable and are most efficient in the tools they're familiar with. So it's not too much of a deal for them, I suppose. Not too much of a deal for me to do the texturing in Photoshop or something like that.
Now, going on to another user-submitted question, have you gotten any help from other modders with your mods? And if so, how have other modders helped you?
Earlier I mentioned I was making my first mod, that Harlexton Manor, and when I started getting to making unique monsters for the mod, I started running into issues animating them. So instantly I kind of went to, I think his name's L.H. Hammonds, or something. I think something along those lines. I think he's pretty known in the Oblivion community. The other person I went to was this guy called Satan Storm or something. I know he made the first kind of rideable dragon in Oblivion, and it was this huge deal, and it looked pretty sweet. So I don't know. I went to these two guys and I said, help me out. I don't know what I'm doing. Can you show me what I'm doing wrong? These are the errors I'm getting, and they helped me as much as I could, but I ended up I wasn't able to grasp it. It was just way too much for me to deal with, and all the Python plugins that were crashing. I wasn't even sure if I installed it correctly, and I just gave up. And they messaged me and they're like, "You can't give up. Don't give up." But I went against that and I tapped out.
Now, sort of on a sort of similar note, it's how would you say community feedback and sort of constructive criticism motivates you when you're making mods?
Oh, it plays a huge factor. It definitely it shows me where I can improve. It shows me if I should keep doing what I'm doing. It's really like it's a massive part of the component of making a mod for me. Like, I'm always making these for myself, but at the end of the day, what I release is already for other people. I can keep playing what I've already made. I'm totally happy with that. But if I release something and it's breaking everyone's game or something like that, I feel obligated to fix it. Or if people aren't enjoying it, or if it's almost in the right place, I'm gonna fix it. And because I want to share what I've done with other people. So it's definitely integral, and it definitely plays a massive part for me, whether it's good or bad.
Now, sort of getting into that, have you found that using feedback and constructive criticism has made you change aspects of the mod that you perhaps liked and others didn't like?
Probably not. I think the closest to that would probably be Epic Ald Ruhn, and it was more of just learning from kind of the feedback I've heard. Like, like I've mentioned, I don't think I can live up to the characters that Bethesda's created and the stories they've made using those characters. So I'll never make interiors, but at the same time, I can still tell stories using the exterior of what I have to work with, and I can still take those big interiors like Scar, and bring them to life, and give them a personality. So in that sense, I have, but I think for the most part, everything I've made has kind of stayed true to what I've had in mind.
Now, is there anything you've had to give up in order to mod, like playing more games, or possibly your social life, like say a Facebook account?
No, my Facebook account is doing very well. Golf guy, it's great. In terms of sacrificing anything, I can't say I have. Like I said, gamer first, modder second. So whenever I feel like I'm lacking in thing, it'll get addressed with socializing with people, playing games. I tend to have a good work-life balance, as you know, with all this traveling. So I'd never let anything kind of consume me in that sense.
You know, I just have to ask, are you sure you're a modder? You seem to be doing a lot of socializing and traveling and actually playing games. It's so weird for a modder to be doing that.
Yeah, why did you decide to interview me? Like, who comes up with these names? Did someone suggest that you interview me? How does that even work? Like, I feel like maybe I don't know.
Sort of going on to a more serious topic, are there any skills you learned from modding? And if so, have you been able to use those skills anywhere else?
I think it's the other way around for me, at least. Like I do a lot of art and design and film and stuff. So it's for me, it's always been bringing those skills to the table. If there's one skill I've kind of built up on, it would probably be 3D modeling. Now, like when I was modding Oblivion for the first time, and I was having those difficult times all those years ago, like I wasn't educated or anything in school, so like I've taken a lot of 3D modeling courses and since, so I know what I'm doing now, but at the time I didn't. So I've definitely been able to apply a lot of those things from school or from my job or from whatever.
Now, sort of off topic, but something that probably applies since you actually play games, which is, again, just so weird for a modder. Are there any other games outside of Morrowind that you enjoy playing? And if so, what do you like about them?
Yeah, there's tons of other games. It's the miraculous thing about being a gamer. Minecraft is a big one for obvious reasons. You know, just making things in general is fun. I think I'm drawn a lot to sandbox games as well. Just Cause 2 is really fun and it's huge. It can feel a little generic at times, but it's really beautiful, I guess you could say. Kind of like Morrowind. Like I feel like it was released such a long time ago, but when you look at it, you feel like it still holds up to today. And then I play like the easier sandbox games like Dead Rising. You know, you'll you'll sit in a wheelchair with mounted machine guns and just plow down zombies. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to be kind of unrestricted and to go to wherever you can see and do whatever you want to do. It's those are kind of the games that draw to me most. Some other games I play are racing games, just because I'm into cars and stuff like that. So racing games have always appealed to me. And, I try to play FPS games when I can, but I'm playing mainly single player games. So the campaigns on most FPS games are pretty short nowadays, so I don't play that many.
Oh yeah. You mentioned Minecraft, and that's actually one I hear from a lot of modders. I think there's something about Minecraft that just really appeals to like the modder mindset of building whatever you want and being creative.
Yeah, and I don't like, and there's a whole modding community for Minecraft as well. I don't mod for Minecraft, but just kind of finding like a unique biome, I think they're called, or finding an interesting canyon and thinking like, what if I put a house there, or what if I hung a tree house from the tip of the canyon or something? Just playing with a world that's kind of started for you is kind of that same feeling I get when I make mods for Morrowind.
But anyway, going on to another question that's sort of similar. If you could mod one other game that perhaps doesn't support mods, what would it be?
That's a tough one. The first thing that comes to mind, such a bizarre one too, is the new Wolfenstein game. What's it called? The New Order. One of the very first games that I started kind of creating stuff with was Wolfenstein, the original Wolfenstein for the PowerPC Mac, and essentially it was just this little tiny, almost like a painting program where you could almost paint together a map, and you can put down health packs and a machine gun and a boss. Like, you fill a room with 1,000 Hitlers if you wanted to. I feel like they have enough tools and characters and assets that they made with the New Order to create something similar, maybe a more constrained kind of toolbox for people to play with. I think that would be a really cool thing for it to have, just to kind of pay homage to the roots of what id Software used to do.
Now that you mention it, the New Order doesn't have modding tools, does it? That just seems kind of strange, given the legacy of the Wolfenstein series.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I mean. Like, there's no modding capabilities for it. Hopefully one day there will be. Even with Doom is there's a massive modding scene, and I think Doom 3 has a few mods, but from what I've seen, it's really difficult to make mods for it. Doom 3. I think that they definitely missed out by not creating some sort of tool for it.
Yeah, I think that might be, part of sort of the fall of id Software, is maybe this move away from embracing the modding community, which they sort of did a lot in the roots, and more recently with a lot of the games that they've sort of shipped off to other studios to a certain extent. This lack of modding tools is something that has kind of held them back from being a bigger player in the gaming market. And although the New Order did pretty well, I think, in terms of sales.
Yeah, no, the New Order was a really kind of fresh take on the Wolfenstein genre. I played the demo of the Wolfenstein game that came out before, and it seemed like an interesting mechanic. You could almost visit the same place in a different dimension, and it looked different, and there was different things in it. But I don't know if it was enough. It wasn't enough for me to buy it. And even Doom 3 was a really good refresh on Doom. But yeah, they were missing the tools to kind of continue making things. I think Rage, which was also done after Doom 3, came with a construction set, but I don't know if it was released at the same time the game was. I think it came a lot later. So yeah, that could have played in, like you mentioned, into kind of the decline on id Software.
Now, going back to some more personal mod questions, is there any particular mod that you're most happy and proud of out of the ones you've released so far?
Yeah, I think definitely the Skyrim UI mod, I'd say, for Morrowind. I was just really happy with the way it turned out. I didn't think it would turn out the way it would, just by simply kind of stripping down all the superfluous borders and colors. And yeah, I feel like in the most recent years, Bethesda's kind of defined the brand identity for the Elder Scrolls, and it's this kind of moody, misty, dark, black and white kind of feeling. And they've got their fonts, and the Elder Scrolls Online continued their website has the same feeling. So I just simply kind of applied that, and I thought it would be difficult because, the font you're using in Morrowind is so much different than Skyrim, but it actually blends together really well, and it stays true to Morrowind, but it brings it to 2011 when Skyrim was released, and keeps it feeling Elder Scrollsy, if that's a thing.
Oh yeah, the font that was originally in Morrowind, it was sort of a more traditional RPG font, sort of the old school days, so to speak, magic cards and the Daedric fonts, and Skyrim's font. It's always struck me as being more similar to Call of Duty, and really the whole UI kind of strikes me as a bit Call of Duty-ish. Especially the objectives list that they use for quest journals. I mean, not even really quest journals, they're just an objective list.
Yeah, I definitely think they took that whole kind of journal aspect out of the quest list for sure. And in terms of the font choice, Magic Cards is what makes Morrowind Morrowind. I was thinking about at one point changing it to the Skyrim font, which is something called Futura. I think they used it in Fallout 3 for the headlines for what the quests were called. Like every quest was named in Fallout 3. I think they used the same font, but in all caps, or it was bolder or something. Oh no, never mind. It wasn't. It was just similar. It felt similar. But I don't know. It took away from the game. I think by just changing the color of it in the Skyrim UI mod for Morrowind that I made, I changed it, everything being in yellow font, just being a clean, crisp font on a black background. It keeps the tone of voice that you imagine in your head when you see the characters talking exactly the same, but it just kind of freshens up the whole look of the UI in a sense. Because for me, fonts are always, and there's a good quote, fonts are the words your word, the fonts are the clothes your words wear. That's always resonated with me. So if you change the clothes, so to speak, of your fonts, you're completely messing with how people perceive in their minds what it is you're conveying, from a character to a story to anything really. So it's a really tricky thing to work with.
Oh yeah, and some of those fonts are just really Elder Scrolls and Morrowind related, like the Daedric font. We use that a lot in Morrowind modding showcases because it highlights the sort of, I don't know how you'd call it exactly, RPG sort of alien feel of Morrowind.
It's totally it's the Morrowind formula. It'll make whatever you're doing feel like you're Morrowind. It was designed. It's part of the lore. Like there's no more to it really. Yeah.
Now, on a very similar topic, do you have a mod that hasn't received enough acclaim as you think it should have had? And if so, which one and why?
Yeah, I think, and it kind of has in the a few months later, or maybe a lot of months later. But the Vivec and Velothi retexture I made, I don't know when I made it, probably sometime last year. I thought it would honestly be doing much better than it was. I think it was file of the month for March, but I don't know. I released it last year sometime. But when I first started, going through Vivec with different texture mods and stuff, I wasn't really happy with all of them because they dramatically changed the feeling of the city. There's the most popular one to date makes Vivec feel really kind of dark and decrepit and worn down. And I don't know, that just doesn't, for me, remind me of how my experience has always been with it. For me, it's always been kind of like this holy yet pristine kind of really kind of straight collar, clean cut place. And I couldn't find anything that really addressed that or was modern enough that jived well with Logan's textures. So I made it, and I put a lot of time into it. A lot of hand. My brother redrew frescoes of the tribunal, and he drew a picture of Vivec stopping the Ministry of Truth from Shiagora. He put some time into it, and yeah, I spent a lot of time crafting little details like Daedric engraving into the railings and stuff like that, and into the doors, and a lot of hand textures. And I don't know, I put a lot of time into it, and I felt like people would see those details and they would really kind of appreciate it. And yeah, I thought it would do much better.
Looking at the Nexus now, it looks like it is the second highest ranked Vivec and Velothi retexture on the Nexus. And the one you mentioned, the most popular one, is the texture replaces by an old friend, and he has some really high quality textures, but they do kind of like change the feel of some of the cities in the game, and they're also the ones that are used in the Morrowind graphics and sounds overhaul, and they're really not exactly for everyone, but they're also a high quality too.
Yeah, no, the quality is definitely there. Like that's out of the not even in the question. It's more of does it fit in the world that's already been created? And for me, that it wasn't working, so I had to do it. But oh yeah, I haven't like I said, I've been traveling a ton, so I kind of looked. I didn't know it was the second highest. I knew it was file of the month or something, but that's good. That's good to hear.
Now, well, sort of going into that, since you've been traveling, are there any mods and modders that currently have your attention in the community?
Just well, not since I've been traveling, but when I am like playing Morrowind or if I'm modding or something, just like I said, Logan, just Logan. Any textures, I gotta have them all. We gotta completely replace everything.
Oh yeah, and he has texture replacers for just about everything now. I think, except for Telvanni, he doesn't have any Telvanni retextures that I know of.
No, Telvanni is tricky. You're gonna have to spend a lot of time doing Telvanni, especially if you want the way it looks in the vanilla game. It's gonna be tricky.
I was actually noticing that there aren't that many Telvanni retextures, period, not on Morrowind Modding History, not on Morrowind Nexus. I've been doing research because we've sort of launched into this series, Morrowind Modding Reviews, where we're covering a bunch of texture replaces and doing a comparison side by side. And it's like, Hlaalu has about 30 different retextures, and then House Telvanni has like 6, maybe 8.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different pieces to work with a lot of different detail to implement. So I think people probably shy away from it for that reason. The Velothi architecture set I didn't even know, but and it's kind of a mixed blessing is when you retexture the wall of Vivec, you also retexture all the entire ancestral tombs. So and it turns out well. It looks nice. So, it's you kill a lot of birds with one stone when you're texturing some of these architecture types. Maybe that's not the case for Telvanni.
Oh yeah, Velothi is used everywhere. I mean, even in Rodarin cities, you still have Velothi built-ins with the temple compounds.
Yeah, it's a fairly easy one, and so is the other one I've done, Imperial Forts. It's fairly straightforward.
Now, are there any mods that you've looked at and think, I wish I made that? And I'm going to go ahead and guess here that the answer is going to be some of Logan's mods.
Yes, but I have more names. I think his name's Transmaster. He made Morrowind Rebirth. I feel like I definitely feel like the Epic cities, they clash with Morrowind Rebirth because they kind of do the same thing. Morrowind Rebirth, digs a lot deeper than Epic Cities in a sense, and I totally wish I did that for sure.
Morrowind Rebirth, it sort of does the same thing, but it does it in a sort of different fashion. It doesn't really add a whole lot of new buildings to cities. More what it does is kind of does a little bit of rearranging things in order to make the illusion of the city being more crowded and bigger than it actually is.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of I don't know, from what I've seen in screenshots and things, I just feel like there's a lot of value in not creating the illusion, but there's a lot of value in giving things more personality and more of a feeling, especially when they stay true to the original concept art, because I know a lot of it is based on the concept art from that art book that's been publicly released.
Oh yeah, and a lot of that art was done by Michael Kirkbride, who still does some Morrowind related art on his like Tumblr blog and other places.
Yeah, so to me, that feels like an idea that I can implement. Like, I feel like it's coming from a source that's credible enough to say, hey, you can do this, ridiculous thing in this Morrowind world because because I've drawn a picture of it and I don't know, I feel like I can trust their illustrations rather than my own in a sense.
Now, sort of moving on to another group of questions. What do you think of Open Morrowind, and do you plan to make any Open Morrowind only mods once it's released?
I haven't been following Morrowind too much. I know the general gist of it and what they're achieving, what they aim to achieve. But I really like the idea of continuing to um, create not an engine but like a platform for Morrowind to grow and to be built upon. Like Morrowind Graphics Center has done so much for Morrowind, but like that's really as far as you can go with the current limitations we have. But by moving it to something else, in terms of a different engine or platform, you can basically start clean slate and build off of it from there, and it can be like this immortal game that continues to rival what you see in the market. So it's definitely exciting. In terms of making mods for it, I'll probably start from a learning perspective to adapt my own mods that I currently have, and then I'll start new stuff if it's fairly straightforward.
Now, are there any features or systems that you're looking forward to being de-hard-coded in Open Morrowind that perhaps aren't available in the sort of vanilla Morrowind construction set?
Uh, Definitely the UI and opening kind of the limitations on UI scaling and things like that. I think that's probably one of the things I look forward to the most.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of that was sort of hard-coded with Morrowind, along with the weather systems and other things.
Yeah, just being able to uh, tweak and adjust and add different functions and things like that. Like the UI system in Morrowind's pretty straightforward, but it can be archaic at times once you've been playing for a really long time with one character or something like that. So uh, I don't know, it could definitely be improved.
Now, what do you think about the other Elder Scrolls games, like Oblivion, Skyrim, and the Elder Scrolls Online? I know you get a lot of inspiration from Skyrim for your mods, like the UI interface and the Epic City series.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. For me, it's always been about, like I mentioned before, like the Elder Scrolls series has always been this amazing thing that I want to share with other people. So, in my eyes, the other games can do no wrong. That being said, some of them are obviously better than others. I liked Oblivion, but I just didn't enjoy it as thoroughly as I did Morrowind, Skyrim, or even the Elder Scrolls Online. I think I enjoyed the Elder Scrolls Online more than I did Oblivion. It just felt really watered down to me in terms of coming from that whole kind of really cultured and unique feeling from Morrowind and even other games that I played at the time, like Fable and stuff like that, Diablo. Like they these all feel like really unique games to me. Oblivion felt very Lord of the Rings to me, like it just took a page from them or something. Skyrim was a lot of fun. I feel like they definitely went back to Morrowind in terms of uh, what worked and what didn't work, what's so unique about the series, and then I feel like they really revisited what it means to explore dungeons and tombs and stuff like that. It was definitely missing from Oblivion. Everything just felt like the same thing, constantly going into the same cave, This time it has bears. This time it has vampires. This time it has bandits. So yeah, I definitely like Skyrim. And then Elder Scrolls Online is, again, that need to share the Elder Scrolls with you. I was playing the beta with a friend of mine, and it was fun to just hang out with him on in Tamriel. It was a cool feeling. That being said, I wasn't, and I'll never be really keen on a monthly pay per month model. So I never actually bought it, but I think once I get back, I'll definitely have to pick it up.
Oh yeah, I think the Elder Scrolls Online in particular got a lot more flack probably than it deserved. I mean, it's not a bad game. It does have some really interesting aspects to it. And they also dropped the pay every month subscription model. Now you just buy it once, and well, that's that. Sort of on a similar note, this is a question from WH Reaper. How many copies of each Elder Scrolls game do you own?
Oh my god, what a bizarre question. I want to say I had, probably storage in my closet somewhere, but I have 6 copies of Morrowind for the Xbox. I have 6 copies because the Xbox version was notorious for giving you 30 disk errors. And I played the hell out of them, so I was basically replacing the game every 5 months or so. So yeah, 1 copy of Oblivion for the PC, 1 collector's edition of Oblivion for the 360. I don't even own a 360 anymore. But I have the collector's edition still. And I have 1 copy of Skyrim for the PC and 1 copy of Skyrim Legendary Edition for the PC. The reason I bought the Legendary Edition was because I didn't have the bandwidth to download all the DLC. So I saw it came out and I said, hey, what an amazing way. I can just get the disc. It's all on the disc. Nope, you have a code for Steam. I had to download like 6 gigs worth of content off of Steam. I was not happy.
Only 6 copies of Morrowind? Oh man, you such a casual.
For the Xbox.
How many copies do you own for the PC then?
Just 1. Why do you need 1 anymore? You don't even need the disc.
But you do need the disc if you have the disc version. In my case, I have I think 10 physical copies of Morrowind. It's like 1 for every computer that I own, except I don't actually have 10 computers anymore because a bunch of them died, but, back when they were still alive, just have a disc in every disc tray that was just Morrowind.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard in my life. Oh my gosh. Why not just move the disc to different disc trays? Oh my gosh.
That's a lot of work. I mean, you have to open the disc tray, take out the disc, take it to another computer, and then when you come back to that computer to play Morrowind, it's not in the disc drive anymore. I mean, why would you even play another game? You should just have Morrowind in every disc drive, and that just makes things so much simpler.
That's true. I'm also having an identity crisis right now. I don't know if I'm a Morrowind player or if I'm a Morrowind modder.
Yeah, you seem to play an awful lot for someone who claims to be a Morrowind modder. I mean, real Morrowind modders they mod all day and never play the game.
But I don't have enough discs to be a Morrowind player, so I'm really at a loss here. I don't know what to do.
Well, clearly you just need to be more hardcore and gather more discs.
Gather more discs. Okay, got it.
That's what's important. In the Morrowind modding community, your status is determined by the number of Morrowind discs you have.
It is. It really is. And I'm really lacking and seriously questioning the entire purpose of this interview.
Yeah, you should just, you should get a treasure chest of Morrowind discs, and then you could, you could gain status in the community. It's like, that's what really matters. It's the number of discs you own.
You can probably get a bunch of cheap ones off of Amazon, I imagine.
Oh yeah, it's like $10 on Amazon. I used to just buy a disc from there, and like every year, it's like, oh, it's another year, time to buy another copy of Morrowind.
See, a digital copy, you don't have to worry about that. You just open up the Steam library, click on Morrowind, and you're good to go.
Right, except then there's Steam sales, so then I buy about 5 to 10 copies of Morrowind every time there's a major Steam sale. It's like at $5, you can get a lot of copies of Morrowind, and then I just throw those into my Steam inventory.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know what you're doing. I think you've lost your mind in terms of acquiring Morrowind copies. It's getting a little crazy.
But in all seriousness, I give those away to people, sometimes random strangers who've never played Morrowind. I think it's always very important to, sort of spread the love of Morrowind to as many people as possible. It's sort of like an infectious disease. You have to infect the largest group of people possible.
Yeah, exactly. And getting back, yeah, totally. And getting back to what I was saying earlier, that's exactly what I'm all about too. And I feel like Skyrim is that infectious disease. It's that thing that's spread to the most people. And now, like you mentioned with the Steam sales that come up for Morrowind, a lot of people that have played Skyrim will see that Elder Scrolls in the headline, and they'll check it out because it's on sale and whatever, and they'll go to the same sources they used for Skyrim, which is the Nexus, and they'll dive into whatever's kicking around there, and that's how we can grow this place.
And this next question is kind of on a similar note. What do you think makes the Morrowind modding community so vibrant after more than a decade?
Two things, I'd say. The first thing is probably, and obviously, the people, their imaginations, their stories, whatever their skills, whatever they can kind of conjure up. The people and the content they create is definitely what keeps the community going so strong. And the fact that the same people have been so dedicated to each other and to the community probably has helped a lot. The second thing, and it's kind of related to the people in a sense, but it's all the kind of extra software initiatives other people have taken, from the Morrowind patch project to Morrowind graphics extender, and Open Morrowind, that will probably keep the community going, because as long as we make Morrowind a better game, there's always going to be people that want to play it. So those are the things, I think.
Oh yeah, and in terms of dedication, the Morrowind modding community is probably one of the most dedicated modding communities that are out there, really. We have so many different projects. We have a lot of projects that are just unique to this community and this community only, that you don't see really anywhere else in the modding community, and I think that's a lot of what has sort of kept us going.
Yeah, definitely. There's so much passion for the actual game and for what people have done and built to keep growing it and making it bigger. So yeah, hopefully it continues to grow.
And sort of getting into that, do you think there's anything the Morrowind modding community should be doing in order to continue to expand and grow in coming years?
Yeah, I touched upon it a little earlier, and it has a lot to do with presentation and advertising of your mods. I think everyone in the community should be doing it. It's the best way to your mod a chance to stand out from things that people just churn out on a daily basis, or it's the best way to show people what's in your mind. The mentality of someone on the Skyrim Nexus, for example, is media. They're really heavy into media. They want to see all the pretty pictures. They want to know what you're going to do to their game, a game that they've potentially just played a character for 150 hours. That's a lot of time, and they need to know what you're going to do to their files. So giving them as much of a feeling without having them commit to your mod is something I think every modder should be doing. By if your mod has movement, include a video throw in an animated GIF. I've seen so many mods that alter something in terms of animation or sound or something, and then there's no way to know what I'm actually seeing or hearing or changing until I install the mod. And most of the time, sometimes it ends up being a disappointment. So I think just giving people as much information as possible and as much visuals as possible, and giving your mod a fighting chance in terms of making it feel as unique as you think it is in your head, in terms of advertising and presenting it, is something that everybody should be doing.
Yeah, sort of going into that, do you think that modders really should be focusing more on advertising? I mean, a lot of modders these days, they might make a release thread on the official forum, but otherwise they don't really go into a huge announcement or do a lot of presentation. They sort of ignore outlets like Reddit, or the Steam forums, or Tumblr, or actually something we do for the channel is that we do like screenshot campaigns on Imager and just sort of plug in the channel that way, and that could potentially be used as a means of advertising mods.
I think that's what you guys are doing with the Morrowind modding channel is definitely in the right direction. I don't think it has so much to do with creating, crazy elaborate videos or anything like that. I think it's just about being in those places, showing your mod to the most people as possible, rather than showing it to a small amount of people within a tight-knit community or something like that, because at the end of the day, they're only going to promote it within their own circles, and you really don't know how big those circles are, and if those circles even appeal to a 12-year-old game like Morrowind. So, getting it in those major, massive outlets, whether it appeals to everyone or nobody, it's just about getting it out there. So I feel like it's really important.
Oh yeah, that's sort of what I meant really, is that people could be posting release threads on Reddit, the Steam forums. A lot of people visit the Steam forums, and Reddit, Morrowind Reddit, has about 15,000, 16,000 subscribers. So that's a rather large number of people that could potentially see your post about a new mod release. And then on Imager, if you have a lot of screenshots of your mod, you can put it into an album, tag it under gaming, and it'll almost be guaranteed to get at least 1,000 views. And you can include a download link on there, and that'll send people off to your mod.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's always like those other, the creative solutions where you mentioned the Morrowind Reddit. Why not post it in the Skyrim Reddit and do like a side-by-side comparison of Dragonborn takes place in Solstheim and so does Blood Moon. Like, why not do like a side-by-side comparison? Suddenly people are looking at Morrowind and they may have never been looking at Morrowind. So, it's always about, for me, finding those places where you can show it to a lot of people, but still have a reason for showing up to those places.
Sort of wrapping up, is there any advice you'd like to give to budding new Morrowind modders out there looking to release their first mod?
Maybe two things. Be patient, I think. I definitely wasn't as patient when I started with Oblivion. And then the second thing would probably be use whatever skills you can outside of Morrowind modding and try to bring them to the table. Whether that's, if you're really good at writing, if you're really good at music, anything. See how you can apply your own skills that you already have to make something using the construction set or whatever tools you're using to build something in Morrowind. Because I feel like you'll get a good head start, and the quality and talent you have will really kind of shine through if you do that.
Very good advice. And finally, is there anyone in the community you'd like to give a shout out to?
I'm really bad with names, and I probably not. Just a general shout out to everyone on the forums and on the Nexus that comment and give me feedback on my mods. And then shout out to you, even though I'm talking to you. I really think what you're doing, like I mentioned, is really important to grow the community and to keep it sustainable, and to adapt with what everyone else is doing. So, kudos to you on that, sir.
Oh well, thank you, and that I pretty much have covered all the questions I've got for you, and I do apologize. It's almost midnight where you are now, I think.
It is. When did we start this? At 9?
Yeah, it's oh dear heavens! Don't tell me this is nearly 3 hours long.
Time flies when you're making epic logs. Or, wait, no, Epic Tree Stumps.
Yes, Epic Tree Stumps, and we'll be seeing a release on that in by June, July. What's the time frame here?
If we had to go into the discussion of a time frame for Epic Tree Stumps, I think we're gonna get to about a 5-hour mark on this interview.
All right. Well, I guess we'll just leave it off there then. And well, thank you for agreeing to do this interview. It's been very enjoyable.
I'm still a little confused on who suggested me, but I had a lot of fun. No, thanks for interviewing me. I enjoyed it.